Welcome back to Why Write. In today's video, we're going to look at exploratory writing. Our objectives for today are to demonstrate knowledge of an individual writing process, apply strategies to revise and edit, and write in a style appropriate to audience and purpose. So the second objective, applying strategies to revise and edit, I won't go into too much detail there. However, as mentioned in the writing process video, it is a part of the process of writing. As you begin to write, you will also revise and edit your writing. One of the things that I'm going to have you to think about as I go over exploratory writing are the key terms. And the key terms are communication, co-topic, subtopic, inner self, personal topics, private topics, personal experience, self-expression, objective, and subjective. All right, so what is exploratory writing? One of the first things you want to think about when you think about exploratory writing is that writing is a private act made public. It is a very intimate act. And you can do this through journaling, through some sort of just free writing, creative expression. And sometimes you write to make life decisions, making your pros and cons list. But this is not something that you always share with the public. You have to decide what you would like to share and what you wouldn't like to share. So it's very important to take out time to be intentional before you make something public, because writing has always been an intimate, private act that you can make public. You can choose to make public if you wish to. Now, what is the difference between personal versus private subject matter? So personal topics are those which you can bring yourself to write about in order to reveal something about your personality, your thoughts, your beliefs, or your life experience. And usually with personal topics, you can utilize these topics to write narratives if you like. Now, what is the difference with the private topics? These are the topics that you can't bring yourself to write about for readers to explore, for you to be vulnerable, for your whole life to be out on display. So these are subjects that can stay where they are. Keep them hidden and safe close to you. They are simply too private to explore in front of an audience. It is important to note that, as the semester progresses, some topics that seem too private might turn out to be just personal. So nothing is automatically private or personal. It is based upon your own perception, and sometimes your perception changes. I like to also bring up social media when I come to this slide. Social media has created a space where you can pretty much post anything about your life. Is it appropriate? I don't think so, because there is a space where things that you consider near and dear should be placed, whether that is in your journal or just close to, or something that you can share with your close friends and family. But not everyone agrees with me when I say that there are some things that you should keep private. So this is a time for you to contemplate, what do you consider personal and what do you consider private? And then also to ask yourself the question, if I do post a lot about my life online, what does that mean and what does that look like? Keep in mind, things that you post online, they stay there forever. So it is very important to consider these two factors, what's personal and what's private, and what you're willing to share and what you shouldn't be willing to share. And this also goes hand in hand as you begin to write in your classes as well. What is something that you can share and what is something that you can't share about your life. Exploratory writing explained. Exploratory writing is basically a vehicle of inquiry. It helps you grow intellectually and it monitors your growth. It also makes learning deeper and more relevant to you. You will also include both your internal and external details of your life, and the exploratory writer are not in so you as the writer, you cannot be objective, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But as we look at the exploratory writing, it is a time to self-reflect, a time for you to go within so that you can begin to think about what subjects in your life matter the most and which ones you would like to share and the purpose for it. And we talked about that in the writing process video. What is the purpose of your writing? That also helps you to think about what you can share, because remember, the intimate part of writing is going to be displayed once you allow others to read it. And so this gives you a time to inquire about what it is you would like to share with the world. Believe it or not, exploratory writing helps you grow intellectually. So often we forget to do self-exploration. And self-exploration not only connects us deeper within, but it also helps us connect deeper with everyone else and with things around us. And so it helps you grow intellectually in the sense to where you begin to ask questions. And when you begin to ask questions, you begin to look for answers. And that helps as well when you look to monitor your growth. As I said earlier, you can make a pros and cons list. Maybe you were thinking about switching jobs, right? And what would be the pros and cons of switching the job? And then you can come back to that list later if you switch jobs and see how much you've grown since that time. Also, exploratory writing helps you to go internally, as I mentioned before. The internal questions, the internal details of your life, just as if you were writing a story about your life, would be your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions. The external details of your life are the tangible things around you, like where you were at the time, what it looked like, what it smelled like, and things like that. So all of this, as you reflect and you contemplate, this helps you to develop your story as being an exploratory writer. Also, you cannot be objective because this is coming from you, the subject. So you're going to be subjective at all times when it comes to being an exploratory writer, just as if you were writing a narrative. Now, exploratory writing and narratives, they're two different forms of rhetorical styles. Exploratory writing doesn't have a formal structure. It is mostly free write, right? So, and you don't need any research. However, your free write can be formed into a more structured writing format, which would be the rhetorical style of the narrative. So again, external details can be taken in by the five senses. Your internal details are more of your thoughts and feelings. So as you continue to think about the exploratory writer and how to write in this rhetorical mode, it is mostly about your being creative, being free writing, and thinking about the self. So types of exploratory writing. Types of exploratory writing are personal. Again, this is something that you can be looked at as a narrative, the revelation of the writer, yourself, you thinking deeply about yourself and your experiences, your life experiences. It can also be familiar. This is more of the informal conversational tone towards readers. So again, this is all about free writing. But the familiar part is when you want to explore something within your life and maybe have your audience interact. maybe asking questions of the audience to answer. It could be literary, where you use a lot of literary devices, such as dialogue, descriptions of scenes, dramatic, heightened, figurative language. All of these can be connected to write a narrative essay. Again, your exploratory writing is just a part of the free writing, the creative part, where you're exploring the self, you're exploring your life experiences, and you're also exploring those things around you as well. I mentioned earlier that your writing as an exploratory writer, it cannot be objective. The reason why is because objectivity is not something that is included in anything dealing with the self. Reality is the filter through our assumptions, prejudices, and beliefs. Exploratory writing makes us more aware of our subjectivity. So this means that your own personal thoughts and beliefs and feelings about certain subjects, it gives you a heightened awareness of how limited your thinking is. And distortions can be interesting, even beautiful. And I mentioned how limited your thinking is. You may have learned something from your parents or picked up information from others, and that can limit you. But it's okay, because sometimes, as the old saying says, ignorance is bliss, right? So there are certain things that you may not know about in this moment that may still keep you in a more peaceful state. Because sometimes the more information that you have, it can take away your innocence on a subject. And so that's why I have distortion can be interesting and sometimes even beautiful. So think about what your distortions are as it relates to things in the world, right? And then look at how your own personal thoughts and beliefs may have distorted that, okay? So, for example, if you have a thought about the world's, I think the example I want to give, yeah. So like the flat earthers, right? So even if you have a theory that the world is flat and you strongly believe that, however, if you got an opportunity to go out in space and you were able to see for yourself whether or not the world was flat, that would take away your own personal subjectivity on that. Now, even though this is based in science, there are some that see it from a different scientific perspective. So when you are looking at things in the world that you may not agree with everyone else, but you get an opportunity to go find the facts out for yourself, that helps you to be a little bit more objective. But when you have a strong belief about something, that's your own subjective view. And the more that you are subjective is going to yield more subjectivity. So to me, this is a two-sided, a double-edged sword, right? So we think that we're being objective about something. However, 9 times out of 10, we're being very subjective because of our own personal thoughts and beliefs on particular topics and subjects. So it's very important to be aware of this by observing yourself and engaging in topics that you are able to discover insights into both yourself and the topic. What made me hold on to that belief so strong? Was it the facts that I pulled? How accurate were the facts? So this is an opportunity, again, as we talked about earlier, that inquiry, how the exploratory writer can be a vehicle of inquiry where you continue to ask questions of yourself, your beliefs, your thoughts, and your feelings. It is important to always go within to discover your own personal thoughts and feelings, and also to look outward to see if your thoughts and feelings align with the real world. this is more true than ever today, because there's so much out here with AI, so much information. You can get distorted and get the wrong information. So it is important to make sure that you're aware of the illusion of objectivity, because it's being blocked by so much of our own subjective views. Which leads me to thinking for ourselves. College is a place for questing and questioning. The purpose of education is to teach us to question everything. No fact is so true that it can't be questioned. Hence my example about the flat earthers. Most people, or I'm not going to say most, let me be careful. Some people believe that the earth is flat. Now, science has told us that the earth is round. However, the flat earthers, they challenge this and they look for other facts. This is very important for you to do, but not just to look for facts so that you're right, but look for facts to find the truth. And learn to engage with ideas that you encounter. Even with the idea about the flat earthers, you may think, man, that's dumb, right? The earth is not flat, it is round. But have you taken out time to look at the information about the flat earth theory? So make sure you are not so closed-minded, which keeps you in that subjective view, that you can't open your mind and look at other things around you so that you can learn and grow more. All right, so guidelines for the exploratory essayist. Always be truthful in what you say, adventurous in how you write, and thoughtful in how you revise. Write modern edited English to aim in communication. Push yourself and your ideas in every essay. Avoid plagiarizing. It is kind of hard to plagiarize as an exploratory writer, especially if you are exploring yourself and the world around you. However, it is so tempting and easy to Google something that does lead to plagiarism. Take out time, just you and your computer without internet access, or you and your paper and a pen, and just begin to explore the world around you. Sometimes it is so freeing to just sit and write about what you see just outside of your window. That helps to continue to aid in you being a creative exploratory writer. And last but not least, never forget that the only constant in exploratory writing is your inner self. And with that being said, we're going to look at our reflection. We're coming to a close of this presentation. Think about this. Do you think of yourself as a writer? When I first wrote this book, Why Write? I thought to myself, students don't think about themselves as writers. You are a writer. In the writing process video, I talked about how writing has been around forever and it's going to continue to be around forever, just in different forms. You are a writer. When you write a paper and submit it in class, that is your work. That's why your thoughts and ideas should be as original as possible. Do you think about what is appropriate to share on social media before you post? I think this is a very valid question. You need to think about what is something that's very intimate and sacred to me that I would prefer to keep hidden. Why do you think it's important to keep some things private? Well, I told you my view. I think it's very important to keep things private because everything should not be posted or shared online. There are some things in your life that I think you should keep private just for yourself, for your friends and your family. Now, as you think about what you're going to write and moving into any of your rhetorical modes, write a list of personal topics you feel comfortable making public. So the exploratory writer does not just apply to writing a narrative just because it's the inner self. You can start with the exploratory writing techniques, even if you're writing a research paper. even if you're writing a argumentative paper. Because if you have chosen a topic, for example, on abortion, you have your own personal views. And even if you haven't experienced it, you may know someone that has experienced it. And you have to ask if they feel comfortable with you even making that information public. So you can use the techniques of the exploratory writer in any rhetorical situation, because what it does, it forces you to stop and think about a topic and a subject and your own personal thoughts and feelings on it, and maybe to ask questions, hold interviews, and ask other people what their feelings are on it as well. And then sometimes just observing the world around you and about the topic will also help as you prepare to write your essays. I hope this video has been helpful. For a deeper dive, go ahead and purchase the textbook Why Write. And if you have comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section. Until next time, happy writing.